The Underground Railroad. Ghost Stories begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Underground Railroad House. It all began when I was 7 or 8. My parents wanted to move out to the country, so we moved to the outskirts of the small town called Hollinsburg. We came up on this house, and it was absolutely beautiful, like one of those houses you've seen in books that everyone wants to live in. We went inside and looked around. We went down into the basement, and it felt absolutely creepy. In the back was an opening, and when my dad looked inside, you saw part of the Underground Railroad, and all you felt was someone watching you. But we thought that maybe it was the feeling of being in a new house, so I didn't think anything of it, and we went upstairs and into the second bedroom. When we went upstairs, we saw that the house had an attic. So we went inside, and it was absolutely creepy. Well, I was watching TV one night, and I was just sitting there when all of a sudden the TV got turned off. Of course, I didn't think anything of it, so I turned it back on. Not 2 minutes later, it got turned off again, and the room got very cold. I was getting ready to turn the TV back on when I saw what looked like a person sitting right next to me. So I jumped up and went into my room and never came back down. While living in that house, I witnessed my hallway light being turned on and off. There were pots and pans being messed up with in the kitchen. I heard old-time music and people talking in the basement, and my brother actually witnessed a blue ghost when he threw pennies at it. It was always scary doing laundry at night because you always had the sense that someone was watching you, and it was a very creepy feeling. Well, one night my dad had some friends over and went down into the basement and walked into the section where the haunted railroad was. And all you felt was this dark presence, where all you wanted to do was run away. We really didn't know anything about the house, but all I know was that I did not want to sleep in my bedroom because my sister had told me that one night she had gotten up to go to the bedroom, and when she got back, my bed was levitating in the house. One day my mom was in the house and she was watching TV, and she said that the ghost was turning it on and off, and she wasn't thinking of it, but she said, "Stop it, Frankie," and it stopped. So at least we knew that one of the ghost's name was Frankie. After that, it was peaceful for a few weeks and thought maybe they would leave us alone. But that was far from it. One day, Mom had a friend over, and she was talking to her, and my mom looked over and saw a little black girl, and she disappeared after playing peekaboo. Well, that was the last straw, and we were getting ready to move out when the landlord told us that she was putting the house in the historic society and that not any children were allowed to live in that house. Ever since that house, no matter where we have lived, we always see spirits, and even as I type this right now, I am hearing voices and bangs. I did some EVPs and found out we have 5 ghosts, and that at least 3 are good and 2 are not so good. So I'm waiting for them to communicate with me some more. But as far as I know, I haven't been physically attacked. I know that wherever I go, the ghosts will follow me, and I'm not scared of them because as long as you don't mess with them, then mostly they will probably not mess with you. I hope you like this story, and I want to hear some of your questions. I will answer back. 115 years. And the slave house is still haunted. It all started when my best friend moved to a new house right behind a post office. The first time I went out there was at her birthday party. The first thing she did was tell us the story of the house. It turns out that the house was 115 years old, at least. It had slave passageways, most boarded up, but the one that went through her closet and connected her room to her stepmother's room was still open. Now, this was a few years ago. I was around 10 or 11, and I'd never had a ghost experience before. We stayed up late that night, me and around 5 or 6 other girls, along with my best friend's older sister, Cody. We told ghost stories until late, then snuck down to get some candy to last us through the rest of the night. Sarah's parents were both asleep on the couch when we were snuck by, and were still asleep when we made it upstairs and crowded into her stepsister's tiny bedroom, filled with junk because she didn't live there very often. We were discussing what we were going to do for the rest of the night when Shelly, one of the girls, declared she was dressing up as a spy and went into the bathroom. We started to argue over what we were going to do when we heard movement in Sarah's room next to us. Thinking it was Shelly, I went out to tell her to get out of Sarah's room. The exact moment I stepped out, the bathroom door opened and Shelly came out. She said she heard someone walking around in the bedroom. I told her we thought it was her. When I walked back into the room, people had their ears pressed against the closet door, listening through the slave passage. But when we walked in to grab our sleeping bags, because we weren't sleeping in there after that, and the lights were still off, there was nobody there. The only living, breathing souls in that room at the time were Sarah's 2 cats. Sarah moved away not long after.